writers, you're listening to the Kobo ReWriting Life Podcast, where we highlight an episode from our backlist that will bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business. I'm your host, Tara Kremen, Director of Kobo Writing Life. This week, we're revisiting an episode from 2020 with Skye MacKinnon. As autumn begins here in the Northern Hemisphere, imaginations start to run wild in spooky season, so I thought this episode about writing mythology and folklore was the perfect fit. Hope you enjoy.
Well, hi, Skye. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for inviting me.
We wanted to start by introducing you a little bit to our listeners. Can you tell us about yourself and about how you got started writing?
Well, I'm Skye MacKinnon. I live in Scotland on the west coast where it's very snowy and rainy today. So quite the usual, but it's very good for writing weather. I quite enjoy sitting here with a fireplace and just looking out at the bad weather. But yeah, I published my first book in 2017. Well, that was my first proper book. I did one back in 2012, I think it was, which had a square cover. So that tells you a lot about the kind of book it was. It is actually still live, but under another name, and I don't tell people about it. It's just there for nostalgia, really. But yeah, my proper publishing started in 2017. I had written before, but that was the time I found out pretty much about how normal people can do publishing, how you don't have to have a specific background or you don't have to have lots of money. I mean, it helps to have it, but it's in the end, it's open to pretty much everyone. And when I met some other authors, some indie authors back then, I realized, yeah, they are normal people. They're just like me. So why shouldn't I try publishing? And then I did, and it worked really well and it took off. And now 3 years later, I have something like 50 odd books. It's plus kids books. I started doing children's books as well last year. It started off as a hobby, a kind of random hobby, but they are now getting quite popular as well. So I have to start to decide now where to spend my time. But yeah.
Did you always know that you wanted to publish independently, or did you start out looking at other options?
When I first wrote the book, my very first long novel, I thought about publishers, mostly because I didn't know anything about self-publishing, but I never quite had the courage to actually send it somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I never tried. But then when I learned about self-publishing and about the control it gives you about everything, and I'm a bit of a control freak and perfectionist, so that came in very handy. And yeah, when I saw how easy it is. Well, it's not easy. It looks easy at first glance. Once you start doing it and realize all that's involved, it's not that easy. But yeah, then there wasn't really any question. And to be honest, I've not really thought about going to a publisher nowadays. Like, if someone came along, like one of the big five, I probably wouldn't say no, but I wouldn't actively search for one.
How did you find out about indie publishing?
It was pretty much through social media. I was always very anti-Facebook. Most of my university time I always refused to register on social media, mostly because of university. I did journalism, and in one of our first lectures, we did a session on privacy online. And our professor basically told us, you're all being spied on and everything is horrible. And so I stuck to the rule of, I did go on Twitter at some point, and I worked as a journalist and sold some stories over that, but it was always just professionally, not private. But then I had to get a Facebook account for my job after university, and I started using it for private stuff as well, and found authors that I'd been reading for years, and I never even thought about looking for them on social media. I just bought their books, and I never knew about newsletters or anything. I just looked, oh, there's a new book, I'll just read it. But then by being on Facebook and seeing all those other authors and interacting with them and seeing about their lives and things, and that got me thinking, okay, yeah, maybe let's try this.
Did you have a backlist ready to go in 2017? Or have you written 50 books in 3 years?
No, I had one book that I started several years before. It was one of those things where I'd get a burst of inspiration and motivation, and I'd write a couple of chapters, and then I forgot about it or didn't have the time. So that book took me 5 years or something to write. And it's not even online anymore. But that one was the one I published in 2017. But that was the only one I'd had. And then everything else has been written since then. Funnily enough, by then, because I started that book years before, I was reading different things back then. So that's very traditional high fantasy. While by the time 2016, 2017, I was reading mostly paranormal romance and still fantasy, but usually with a romance aspect. So I decided then that I wanted to write what I was reading. And so my whole genre and I guess later on brand developed differently from that first book.
We had some fun in the office with your quiz that's on your website.
Yes. Oh, yeah. What did you get?
I don't remember the title. It was set in Scotland and it was not fantasy. I need to look it up. What did you get, Rachel?
I wrote down the title and then I forgot, but I got one of the...
and we all made everyone else do it.
It's one of the sci-fi titles because I am a huge sci-fi fan.
Yay!
But yeah, and then I also got my elemental magic would be earth magic.
Mine was spirit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I just did a new quiz. I just need to put it on the website now about what kind of alien you are to correspond with my latest series. I shall send you the link.
Cool. Please do. Yes, if you're listening, you should go and do the quiz. But what I got from that is that you really do write across multiple genres.
Yes.
And I wonder, what is that like for you in terms of marketing? Do you find that readers are loyal to you or do they divide into different genres?
And I think they're mostly loyal to me. What combines pretty much 90% of my books is that they're reverse harem, so that it's romance with several partners, usually one woman and 3+ men, but I've got various combinations. And RH readers are very much, well, they're insatiable, and most of them do read across genres. I mean, sometimes there's a split between contemporary and everything fantasy, sci-fi, but most of my readers pretty much read whatever I write, and they do tell me I would have never picked up a book in that genre otherwise, but I know you wrote it, and I like your style, and I like your kind of way of doing things, and so then they pick it up. But that's for the readers I interact with. So those are the ones that follow me on social media and who tell me. So who knows how readers who are kind of away from that, who I'll never hear from, they might be completely different. That's always the hard thing to find out. Yeah, I wish there was more data on everything. I love data.
That was what your professor was warning you against, though, right?
Oh, yes, I know. I love spying on people now. But
how do you find marketing reverse harem? I know a lot of our authors say that that's really challenging.
Yes, it used to be much easier at the beginning. When I started off, there wasn't as much competition. There were a few authors who were doing it, and there were readers wanting more, which was one of the reasons why I started writing. I wanted to read more, but there wasn't more, so I wrote it. But it's changed so much. Like, lots of authors saw it and thought, oh, it's great for making money, without actually grasping the essence sometimes. Right. So they wrote 1 or 2 books in it and realized, well, it may have made me money, but it's not a thing I want to write. And then they move on. It's the people who write to market. They do one after the next, after the next. While those of us who were there from earlier and who do it because it's their passion, it's the thing, they just enjoy writing, we're kind of, well, I guess it's the long game. And once everyone's gone again from the hype, it might get easier again. But Amazon don't like it at all. Their ads, they usually block anything that has reverse harem in it. In between, it was that you couldn't even have anything relating to it in the blurb. Now, I think it's getting better. You are able to at least allude to it, but you wouldn't be able to have it in a subtitle or anything. And that was allowed at the very beginning. Not that I've ever done much Amazon ads, but at least when I was trying, it did work. But that's pretty much, not working. With Facebook ads, there's the problem that there are no, or only one really traditional published author who does RH, and you can only target traditional authors on Facebook. So in a genre that's very much indie dominated, you have to find other interests you can target with Facebook ads.
Oh, that's something I actually hadn't thought about, is targeting the readers of... I don't know. I didn't know that. You can only target, so you would be able to target like J.K. Rowling's readers, but not...
Yes.
Right.
And you can target genres, so I could do urban fantasy, but not everyone reading urban fantasy might like that romance aspect. And I know a lot of people, especially in the last year, maybe 2 years, connected a lot with erotica and it being all really steamy, which is not what I do and what a lot of the original authors do. I mean, one of the really old, not in the grand scheme of things, but in the RH world, C.L. Stone's Ghostbird series that has no sex at all. And I think there's not even a kiss until book 4 or 5 or maybe later. It's all about the dynamic. And that's what I love about it, about having at least 4 main characters and how they interact and how they have their lives together. While a lot of the current RH books are all about the sexy times. And so now there's those pretty much 2 different audiences, the ones who've only just discovered it and who are looking for that, and the more traditional original audience who might like it, but where it's not all about that. And so that sometimes makes it hard to find the right audience. So even if I manage to target RH readers, they might not be the RH readers I want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So is a lot of your marketing done by newsletters and speaking directly to readers?
Yes, it's mostly social media, and I've got a newsletter that I've curated over the years and gently pruned and made grow. It's like my little baby now. I've put a lot of work into that newsletter, but it's working. That's the good thing. When I release something and I send out a newsletter, I do immediately see a spike, so I'm quite proud of that. But it's a lot of cooperating with other authors, and especially now wide authors. I started in KU, but I went wide about 1.5 years ago now. Well, actually more, we're 2020 now. 1 year, 9 months. And I've been trying to focus more on collaborating, especially with wide authors, to broaden that audience.
Just speaking about collaborating, you co-wrote several series with different authors. And I was just wondering, how did that come about? How did that change your writing process?
The first big co-write with Laura Greenwood, it's a weird little story. I was at work and I really loved my job, but I was terribly bored on that day. It was one of those days where you just have to do admin and emails and boring stuff. And I was chatting with her on WhatsApp. I really hope my boss doesn't listen to this, my ex-boss. But I was chatting to her and I was randomly writing away and wrote 500 words about a Kelpie princess who went to land for the first time. And I sent it to her and she was bored at work too. And so she wrote 500 words back. And on that day, we just went back and forth and continued doing that. And later on, we did about 1,000 words, usually, sometimes more if it was flowing nicely. And then we ended up with 7 books and 3 novellas in that series out of being bored. We never had a plan to do that thing. We have 2 audiobooks as well. We've been doing signings together and all sorts. It's crazy how it completely, there was no plan for it at all. All my other co-writes, there has been at least a bit of a plan, while this one was completely random. And with Laura, we never did any discussion of what was going to happen next. We didn't do any plotting or anything. Sometimes it was more a battle between us. For example, I created a character who I was thinking might be a love interest, and she'd kill him off before they ever got into a relationship. While I sometimes killed off her characters or made them the bad people. So that was the great thing about writing with Laura, is that we have a similar sense of humor and we love teasing each other and we love destroying each other's plots. So in the end, and our readers love that. And we sometimes posted screenshots of our conversations on Facebook, and people love that. They love seeing how we tease each other and how we sometimes go on rants and shout at each other for doing something. When Laura changed the complete family history of our main character, I went on a bit of a rampage and encouraged my readers to infiltrate her group and post scary memes and all sorts of things.
So fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I've been trying to get her to write another series with me. So yeah, Laura, if you're listening to this, hereby cordially invited. But yeah, that one is the longest co-written series I've done. I did another one with B. Page, which is a trilogy. And while we didn't really plot either, it's based on Dante's Inferno. So we just have a a basis for the whole story. We took the original Infernal story and put it into modern day, and converted some of the characters. Most of the characters from the original are in there, but we've changed them all a bit. We've made a hellhound one of the love interests instead of one of the bad guys, and we've had great fun with that, of trying to adapt that really original and well-known piece of literature into something that modern, especially modern young people, might want to read.
That would be fun, because there's so much in that book.
Yes, and to help us, we got a comic version, a graphic novel version of it. And that helped us putting some things already in a kind of more approachable context. Well, then we had a look at the original sometimes, and there's different versions of that, which then makes it harder to interpret some of the things. Like there's some quotes which could be interpreted as that person being negative or bad, while in another version he isn't. So that gave us some room to play. It's quite weird how we did try to be really strict sometimes with sticking to the original text, even though most people won't really care, but we did. So yeah, that was great fun. Now I've started a new co-written series with Rebecca Royce, who was one of the first RH authors I read, actually. She does a lot of sci-fi romance, and I always fangirled over her. It was whenever she even just commented on something. Oh, it's such a dream.
So cool.
And I got to meet her earlier this month in Sydney. We were at a signing together, and it was ironic because she's from America and I'm from Britain, and we met in Australia for the first time. We'd done everything online before, all our co-writing discussions. But yeah, we've done, the first book was published 3 days ago actually now. And we're writing the second one, Purgatory City. It's a Hunger Games meet aliens kind of thing. It's dystopian, post-apocalyptic, and yeah, it's got some aliens thrown in just for fun. And with her, again, we didn't really plan much. We had a general direction of the story, and in between, we did chat more about what might happen than with Laura, where we really tried not to say anything, maybe until the last 2 chapters, when we'd say, okay, this needs to happen before we wrap this up. And we always had a list of, this needs to happen in this series, all the, the kind of big questions, but we never planned when to answer them. Well, with Rebecca, we've had a bit more of a plan, but not really.
And do you do it in the same way where you're sending pieces of it back and forth to each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
It always, with every author, it's a different length. With Rebecca, usually it's around 500 words. With Laura, it ended up between 1,000, 2,000. With Kelly, it was again around 1,000 or a bit under. And now I'm doing a 3-way co-write. Well, we're trying. This is still a secret. But there's 3 of us, and it's varying. It really just depends on how the story is flowing. So we tried not to set any goals, and we don't have a deadline for that. It's really just one of those hard projects where we all wanted to write that story, and we're just seeing where it goes. But that's a completely new way again, because there's a third person in the mix. And so I always have to wait until 2 people have written, and then trying to get all 3 of our styles mixed is a lot harder than having just the 2 people. But it's working. I think it's working. But yeah, it's going to be up to the readers in the end to tell us if it did work.
In the podcast?
Yes.
Yes, okay. You heard it here first.
Yes, exactly. And one of those authors is Laura. So we are doing something again together. But yeah, not just us.
That's really great. I can't even imagine being able to work on a project with an author that I've been fangirling over. I think that's so fun.
Oh, yes. And it still sometimes happens to me. Like yesterday, I read the words she wrote, and I was completely, those are brilliant. I could have never come up with that, and that's such a plot twist, and readers are going to kill us, and I was close to killing her. But yeah, it's quite special. I mean, I love all my co-writers, and I don't want anyone to feel left out or anything. Which is why I'm going to mention that I also have a co-write with Arizona Tape, which was our very first. It's just a short story, but it's hilarious. It's called Partridge and the Pear, and it's a parody, a sci-fi parody of the Partridge and the Pear Christmas song, well, the 12 Days of Christmas. And it's a parody, and it's hilarious, and you should totally check it out.
Is it a Christmas book? Christmas themed?
It's Christmas themed-ish. Okay. It wasn't an anthology for Christmas, so there is an underlying Christmas message, which is mostly you're all going to die on Christmas Day. So it's not really festive as such, but Christmas is mentioned in it, so that was the main point.
That sounds like fun as well. So it sounds like you use a lot of different places that you draw inspiration from, and I know you talk a lot about Scotland and the scenery and the
yes,
that kind of thing. Why do you like writing about Scotland so much?
Well, I just love this place. I moved to Scotland 10 years ago, and I fell in love with it pretty much the moment I got here. I love the culture and all the mythology. Like, every place you go to, even the tiniest village, has some kind of ruins and legends. And I just recently told someone the story in Stirling, where I went to university. There's a standing stone in front of the police station because they couldn't move it, but they wanted to have a building there, so they just built the police station in front of the standing stone. And things like that. It's just, wherever you go, there are stories. And I think a lot of those myths and legends just aren't really used by other people, or they're just not really spoken about anymore, and I don't really want them to die out. And so I always try to incorporate something unusual, which is why the series with Laura, the Seven Wardens, we have Kelpies and Selkies, which are still both more known, and we also have Nessie as a special treat, but we also have some very unknown, especially Gaelic creatures from Gaelic mythology that most people wouldn't really have heard of, which is why we also have illustrations in that book, because people told us, I have no idea what that is and what it looks like, and yes, you describe it, but I'd really like some kind of reference. So in that series we decided to have some illustrations in it for that reason. But yeah, I did last year. I started studying a master's degree in Highland and Island culture, which is all about basically Scottish mythology. Well, not all about it, but yeah, and it's amazing. I did a module on Norse mythology now as well, and I learned how to read runes and some basic Old Norse, and so I incorporated that into a series with like actual Vikings, not just the Vikings you can read about in other romance novels, but I tried to make it as authentic as possible. But yeah, that course has already taught me loads, and I've got an entire list of legends I want to write about at some point. But I like combining those things with modern twists or even sci-fi things. So I've got a new series planned. Again, you heard it here for the first time. With shifters on a spaceship. And some of those shifters are probably going to have some Scottish roots. So yeah, I like playing with old legends and giving them some kind of twist.
Were you into fan fiction before you started publishing?
No, never.
Okay. No, that's interesting, because I love the idea of taking, especially mythology, and taking those stories and playing around with them. But I guess it relates a lot to fan fiction. And
yes, it does.
Yeah. Started there.
Most of what I know about fan fiction is that it's scary, especially when you look at Harry Potter things.
I just found out that. Someone at work told me that, and I didn't really need to hear any of it, to be honest.
Exactly.
I've never fallen down that route either, but yeah, I didn't think about all the twisted things you can do.
I have a friend who likes to send me things like that, and I don't usually open them after I did once or two, and it traumatized me for life. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
And there's a whole subsection, especially of Harry Potter fan fiction, where they like to kill off main characters.
No, stop it.
Which is just, I don't know.
Yeah, it shouldn't be done.
No. Hermione should live a long and healthy life.
Exactly.
Just speaking of like fandoms and whatnot, you write a lot in science fiction and fantasy, and I was just curious what drew you to that genre.
I've always liked fairy tales. That's how I guess it started in the very first place. Fairy tales, legends, myths, and I guess that then leads to fantasy. And in terms of sci-fi, it was mostly my dad telling me to watch Star Trek with him at weekends because nobody else in the family would. So it was us watching those really old, the kind of original Star Treks, which then none of my friends knew about, which then led me to starting to read modern novels that were sci-fi, just to have some kind of connection to that. And it's just spiraled out of control from that.
Cool.
But it's awesome. my reading tastes have changed a lot over the years. I used to read some contemporary stuff as well, which I now don't at all. I've written 2 contemporary books, yes, which is a bit weird because I wouldn't really read them as such if I saw them on a bookshelf. But they both have some kind of deeper meaning or like special reasons why I wrote those. And so those are different. They just wouldn't have fit into a paranormal world. But yeah, and I think I'm always going to write what I read. I can't really imagine someone telling me write that because it's popular or because I really want it. It has to be something I connect with. And that's what it's all about for me. It has to be fun and it has to be a passion. I don't want this to become a job.
Absolutely. But it is a job for you, right? This is your full-time. Yeah.
It is my full-time job, but I don't want it to feel like it.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally am.
And how did you get into, we haven't really talked about your kids' books. How did you start writing children's?
It was pretty much by accident. I have that one series, Daughter of Winter, which was the first one I completed, and it's still got a special place in my heart because of that. And it's got quite a lot of followers and people. I think a lot of people found me through it. And so it's, 1.5 years ago for Christmas, I wanted to do something special for my readers. And so I thought, okay, there's a unicorn in that second book. And it's not a shifter, it's a proper unicorn, but it's an adult book. So it's an adult unicorn, I guess, who is into drugs and all sorts of things. So it's not very appropriate for kids. But I thought, well, people love that unicorn and they've always asked for more information about him and where does he come from and why is he the way he is. And so I thought, okay, I'll write a little short story about that unicorn. Now I wrote that story and I sent it out in my newsletter and people replied to me, my kids loved that story. And I was like, that was never the plan. I mean, it was kid friendly. There was nothing bad in it. And it was quite a simple story about a unicorn who was born without a horn and then has to find it. And there's evil camels who took the horns, and also, yeah, it's a very whimsical, completely nonsensical story, but I guess that's why kids liked it. And then when people said we love that, I gave it a cover, kind of lots of rainbow colored cover, and put it on Amazon and everywhere else. It's on Kobo, and yeah, people started buying it and reviewing it, and right now that book is featured on Barnes & Noble in the 3 to 5 category. It has been featured all month. So if you go there for the age 3 to 5, it's at the very top. They didn't tell me. I just saw that my paperback sales suddenly skyrocketed. And usually they're more for libraries and kind of traditional bookshops where those sales are from. And I maybe had a handful in Barnes & Noble before, and suddenly they're like, yeah, it took me days to find out why. So it's quite fun how the children's stuff just sells without me doing much about it. But yeah, after I did that first book, people started asking, do you have any other kids' books? And so I did another. The next one was A Llama Celebrates Christmas. Llama learns about Christmas first and then celebrates it, because of course llamas don't know how to celebrate Christmas, as we all know. And that llama now has 4 books, and it's pretty much been going on since then. I did write one which was quite close to my heart about dementia, a little bunny whose grandfather forgets his name and forgets his carrots and gets lost in the woods, and my grandma's got dementia. And so I was writing that pretty much because I was thinking, how would a small child cope with that? I mean, it's hard enough for me to understand how it's developing and like, why isn't she the person she used to be? And so it was like, well, how would a toddler cope with that? Like, why is Granny changing? And so I wrote that book for that. But all the other ones are pretty much just funny and cute, and sometimes they have a moral message about friendship and forgiveness and all that. But that one book is kind of the one that stands out as the more educational one, I guess.
Are you an illustrator?
No, I was very lucky with my last 2 books about Nessie, that my friend Arizona, who I co-wrote that Partridge in the Pear book with, she does book covers and illustrations, and now she did the illustrations for that one. So it was really fun to work with her again after almost 3 years since that weird little parody adult book that we now did kids books together. And she's brilliant with that, and we're probably going to do a third Nessie book soon. Yeah, it was so popular, that book, when I went to Australia. That was the first time now that I had a section of my table for Isla. I had 2 tablecloths once, one for Skye, one for Isla. And, well, Isla Winter is my pen name for kids. And a lot of people brought their kids along to the signing, but of course they get bored if it's all just adult books. And so I had a crowd of kids around my table at some point who were all looking at the kids' books, and the Nessie books sold out the quickest, followed by the unicorns. So it was quite good to see what's popular with the kids themselves instead of just the parents, because usually it's the parents who buy the books. So it was, good to actually talk to the kids. And one came back at the end of the signing, or like just before it ended, told me, oh, he's already read the book. Well, he had someone read it to him. And he loved it so much. And if I could sign it again, first time someone's asked me to sign a book twice, but it was absolutely adorable. And I now have several of them as audiobooks as well, because parents, I never thought about getting children's books into audio, because I mean they're 5 or 6 minutes long if you have them as an audiobook, but parents told me their kids want it read several times a day if they really like a book. So having it as an audiobook where you can just press play, and it seems to be the stress-free option. And I can completely understand that now that I've heard that. It makes sense.
Do most of your kids' books, are most of them print as well as audio?
Yes, they're all print, mostly ebook, and now I've got, I think, 5 as audiobook. One is processing at the moment, so it will be 5 then. Yeah,
because I know on Kobo, at least, ebooks, picture books for kids, I think people still prefer hard copies.
Yes, definitely. My ebooks are maybe 5% of the sales, maybe 10. So sometimes I wonder if it's worth doing the ebooks, but, well, usually, I mean, all the illustrations and text is done, so I might as well. It's just a few more minutes for formatting. So, but I wouldn't do it just ebooks. That really wouldn't be worth it.
And when it comes to distribution, like yours are, well, okay, for example, the Nessie book, I imagine that would be popular at the shops at Loch Ness or places like that. Have you had any luck selling it or distributing it?
I'm planning to. I've not tried yet. The first Nessie book only came out just before Christmas, and the other one came out after, but I've not really had the time to even promote it because I had the signing in Australia and had to do too much organization for that, and then went on holiday right after. But it's on my to-do list for March to try and get it into more local places.
Yeah, I bet they would go down really well.
Yes, for sure. I used to work for Historic Scotland, who look after all the, well, not all, but most of the castles and historic places in Scotland. And so I quite know their shops, and a lot of them have children's books. So I'm going to try and see if they'd like the books by one of the previous employees. Maybe that gives me a little advantage. Who knows?
Sure it does. So how do you handle distribution for print on demand? Or is it print on demand, or do you print and then send to books?
No, it's print on demand.
Okay.
I'm thinking of doing a complete print run for the second Nessie book because it's a lot about climate change, and I would love to have it printed on recycled paper and have it produced in a better way than usual, but it's pretty hard to get all that organized, so not sure yet if that's going to stay a dream or not. I've been even thinking about crowdfunding that perhaps, but let's see. But everything else I upload to Ingram Spark with ISBNs. So I know in Canada they're free. Here, unfortunately, they're not. So that was something that prevented me at the very beginning when I did my first few kids' books, and I didn't know if they would sell at all. I didn't do that, and I now kind of regret it because now I have 2 versions of most of them. One of them is the free Amazon ISBN I got, and the paid, Ingram one.
Okay.
But most of the books are sold via Ingram now at either to libraries or to bookstores. Sadly, they don't give you as much information as other places on where things are actually sold. And on Amazon paperback those are going quite well as well too. And now Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Planned, but those are now I think they've probably outdone at least my Amazon sales this month in paperback. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But the whole children's thing has been one kind of weird journey that I never planned to go on, because I don't have any kids. I never thought I'd write for kids because I don't have the reference. I don't really have a child I could sit down and say, like, read this book. Is it good? Would you like it? Are you still interested after the first 4 pages?
But what do? Do you go to schools, or do you borrow other people's children?
I borrow other people's children. My PA, she has 2 adorable nephews who are my test subjects, especially for audiobooks. They love the audiobooks. So yeah. They get to listen to all of them before everybody else. And my sister is a primary school teacher. She only just started, but she has, while she was doing work experience and things, she always told me, this is a new trend coming. You might want to write something in that direction. And now that she's started her first proper job, I'm expecting her to take my books into the school. And yeah, if she doesn't, then, well, no Christmas present.
Awesome. Rachel was pointing out that a lot of your protagonists are badass women. And we were wondering if you have any women that have inspired you, or literary characters that you are inspired by.
That's a tough question. But yes, I suppose the books I read or read are pretty much always about strong women. Usually people who start off from difficult circumstances and overcome those and kind of become stronger people. They don't always have to be rich and powerful at the end, but just their personality changes and they become kind of a mental development. And I quite like that in my stories as well. I mean, sometimes they do become queens and a goddess in one case, but it's all about the internal journey for me. But yeah, I think a lot of the times my characters are my role models, especially in my Catnip series. Cat, written with a K. It's not as obvious as having a cat with a C. She's pretty much how I'd be in another life. She's so tough and doesn't care what anyone thinks. And she's also a bit of a sociopath and loner, so maybe not a complete role model. That's more the hermit aspect is more me at the moment, I think. Well, she's amazing. She's clever and just takes life in her stride, no matter if she's kidnapped or if she has to deal with body parts in her fridge, or no matter. It doesn't really matter what happens. She just deals with it without, much caring or even complaining. And so I quite like that. And I think it's nice to escape the normal world where you have a lot of, people, or especially women, who aren't getting treated the way everyone should, and where there's still so much difference in men and women, even in the Western world, and it's even worse in other countries. So I like to write about strong women who have all those chances, and I'd always try to have them in worlds where there's no difference, where it doesn't matter what gender you are or what you look like. That's one of the things I always try to incorporate, or if it isn't, then it's usually portrayed as bad.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you on the podcast was I think that we speak to a lot of really successful authors that started at the beginning of the self-publishing boom, like 2013. And we wondered what it was like for you to start a little bit later and come in 2017. Like, what advice would you give to authors who are just starting out now?
Good question. There's a lot to say about that, I think.
Yeah.
I was quite lucky that I started writing in a genre that was popular or getting more popular at the time. And pretty much my first book hit it off and made enough money for me to theoretically quit my job pretty much immediately, which I didn't do, but I could have. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. And I've seen cases where people have 1 or 2 successful books, especially at the beginning, and then everything after just flops, or just is in a normal progression. You should always expect for it to go up linear and not have those spikes at the beginning and then kind of plateau. You always hope that, it always just gets better instead of worse, but you never know. And so I always recommend have an alternative plan, and don't expect to be sitting there earning a full-time salary anytime soon. It happens, but a lot of my author friends, they've been at it for 5, 6, more years and they aren't there, or they wouldn't want to take that step just because you never know how things develop. And I mean, there's so many, like every few months, there's something new in the author world where you think, okay, not sure how that's going to develop, if that's going to be bad for indie authors or authors in general. And so, yeah, I'm not usually a cautious person, but with publishing, I am, or at least I try to be. If you start off at the very beginning now, I would say don't make the mistake of looking at the books that are doing really well, but look at the books on maybe page 3 or 4 of the list of the results, because the books that are at the very top of the bestseller list usually have lots of advertising. They are very rarely the first book someone writes. They are, well, sometimes the only book that person will ever get up there in that kind of area. And sometimes they have pretty bad covers and something you shouldn't aspire to, but they just get into that position for all sorts of reasons. So I usually advise look further down where you find the books that may have been in that position for a month or longer, which is what you want. You want to have the stability rather than the one peak and then the big drop. Again, sometimes it helps looking at the wide retailers more than Amazon, because you don't have the spikes and the variability there as much, at least in my experience. And then having things like a good cover, a professional cover, not a square one that you've made.
Hey, you learned.
I definitely did. And I mean, by the time when I published in 2017, I did have a professional cover. So yeah, I did learn from that for sure. And have a blurb that, again, matches the ones in your genre. Not every genre has the same sort of blurb. So if you read a lot of thrillers and write a romance, you should look at the romance novels and see how things are done there. Pretty much read what you write. I know there are some authors who say the exact opposite. I'm not one of them. I think you should know what people expect in your genre and what other authors are doing. I always recommend asking authors for advice. Sometimes they may not get back to you. Sometimes they may not answer, but I think a lot of them do. I'm always very happy to give advice and to help. What I don't like is if people then don't listen, which has happened often enough that some people are now on my blacklist, which is really sad. But if you answer, like, take the time to spend hours and hours explaining something and then they do the exact opposite, that's always quite depressing. Yeah. So one thing you need to do is, like, you need to be willing to learn and to always improve. There's never a point where you know everything, and especially with how everything develops. I mean, first you start writing a book, you publish it as an ebook, then you learn about paperbacks, then you learn about audiobooks, then you might learn about other things like making a serial out of it, and who knows what the next thing might be. You might turn it into a text story, or you never know what comes next, and you always need to be willing to move with the times and try out new things. And just because something is trending right now might be completely forgotten in 2 years, but if you don't try it, you will never know, and you may have missed out on the next big thing. So yeah, I'm always say experimenting, but still stay cautious enough not to throw everything at one thing. Always try and don't put your eggs all in one basket, which is why I'd recommend going wide as well, because
yeah, that was something else I wanted to ask you more about. Like, what was it like for you to go from Kindle Unlimited to moving wide? Was it frightening?
It was, but it happened at a time where a lot of my both friends and people in the RH genre had been page stripped by Kindle, by Amazon. So that means that a lot of their page reads were taken away without really being given a reason. Some friends of mine lost half of the income several months in a row. And so there was, every month there was the dread, is this going to happen to me? And there's nothing you could do about it. That was the thing I hated the most, because you don't know what is going to happen. You're completely at their mercy, more or less. And so that was the point I decided, okay, I want to get away from that, of having just the one retailer and being exposed to their whims. And so I asked Amazon to release everything from Kindle Unlimited in one go. and then uploaded it wide, step by step. I didn't do all the books in one go, mostly because I kind of wanted to experiment with how it works, and it, I mean, time thing, it takes forever to upload everywhere. I mean, back then I still used a distributor mostly and only went direct. I think I've always been direct with Kobo and Google, but the other ones were all with Draft to Digital.
Mm-hmm.
And Pronoun when it still existed, which it doesn't anymore. But yeah, it went slowly after that. But what really helped was having one book in a series free. And that gave that one series, and through that, my other books, then later a big boost. I went wide with most of my books around July, August. I think by about end of August 2018, everything would have been wide. And then in September, I put that first in series free, and the sales for that just went up. And that was a great start to being wide. I think that helped build an audience, especially because it was a series that's kind of in the middle of everything I write. It was connected, like it's paranormal romance, but it was fantasy-ish enough to also appeal to that audience who might then go on to my more fantasy series. But it also had a post-apocalyptic aspect, which would then perhaps lead to the sci-fi stuff. So that was pretty much unintended. But in retrospective, that was exactly the right book to set free. And then a couple of months later, I had a BookBub featured deal, which again helped. But it's a gradual growth. And I think if I had started wide, I would have probably seen, again, a gradual growth without having the big spike at the beginning, which may have been good or not. I'm not quite sure if I would have liked that. I mean, it was great at the beginning to have like that, see how much money you can make. And it was very encouraging and motivating to write more and more. At the same time, I think you learn a lot more if you do it step by step and have to work your way up, because then you know what to do and you're not standing there and see like, oh my goodness, this is a success. I want to make my next book a success, but how am I going to do that? So when you rely on it being random or luck, it's just not sustainable. So yeah, it was a growth. And I think people say it can take up to 9 months for the algorithms why to kick in some retailers. And that was pretty much it. I've looked at my stats, and after about half a year, the increase was faster. And now it's pretty much, it's very steady. Well, with Amazon, I have a release and it goes up and then it falls again. While with Wide, I mean, I do, of course, have a spike when I have a release, but it doesn't fall as much and it stays it's very reliable. And I really like that. I don't have any fears of my income suddenly collapsing the next month, because it is my only income and it's what I live on. I don't really want to be dependent on that.
Well, it's like you said earlier, if part of the appeal of indie publishing was being in control of it yourself, then you lose all of that if you're going to be with one retailer.
Exactly. And I can decide what retailers it's on and what price it is. And I'm planning to have some box sets that may be on Wide retailers only and not on Amazon, because there are less restrictions with the pricing and better promotional opportunities, like the Kobo promo dashboard, which I'm a very big fan of. And the Barnes & Noble, they have a promo dashboard too, which is also great, but yours is better. But yeah, those kind of opportunities, Amazon just doesn't give you that. They only reward the people who are already selling really well. While I think you guys and most Wide retailers in general are more open to giving newbies a chance, and you look more at the book and perhaps the quality of the book rather than how much money it's already made. I mean, that's what I imagine. Do correct me if I'm wrong, but it's, I mean, some of the books that have had promos on Kobo have been ones that don't usually sell that much or don't have as many reviews, but it's always encouraging, and usually those promos really work. So yeah, that's
great to hear.
That's a great feature.
Good. So what can readers expect from you next?
Right now, I'm working on another Scottish book. It's called Highlander Academy. I've got a series of standalone Academy time travel romances. One of them was Vikings. I have one about Mary, Queen of Scots. I have one about ancient Egypt, and now the fourth one is going to be Highlanders. The fun twist about that is that the main character, she's the daughter of Mary Queen of Scots from the other standalone. So they are connected. How Mary Queen of Scots got to have a daughter, you have to read the book for that. It's a fascinating tale, which of course never made into the history books. But this Highlander Academy, again, is based a lot on the things I learned at university now. And so it's not just going to be about sexy men in kilts, but there's going to be more about the culture and again, some mythology. Even though it's not paranormal, it's more like the sci-fi aspect of time travel. So it's the technology that enables time travel, not going through a circle of stones. But yeah, that's the one I'm working on just now, together with the sequel for the book I've co-written with Rebecca Royce, the one that just released. And I'm also working on the 6th book in my Catnip Assassins series, which is called Claw. All the books in that series have one-word titles relating to cats. It's my most successful series ever. And it was planned as a standalone, then it turned into a trilogy, then it was 4 books, and now it's 7 books planned.
Your readers won't
This is book 6. No, I got so many emails of protest after when I told people it's going to be a trilogy, and after reading the 2nd, they said, like, you can't just wrap it up in one more book. And so, well, it's planned as 7 books. I won't promise that it won't be more. But yeah,
a lot of different projects coming out this year.
Yeah, I always like working on several things at the same time, because if the words aren't coming for one project, I can switch and do something else. And sometimes I might be in the mood to write about funny black humor cats, while the next day I might be more into sci-fi, or I might have a day where I want to write something really deep and emotional, which is what I have one book for, which is contemporary and which I've been writing on for, I think, 1.5 years now. But it's so emotional that I can only write that on certain days. And so it's been growing very slowly, but I think it's going to be worth it. But it's just, one of those things which I wouldn't be able to just sit down and write, because it's just too in there. Right.
And what have you been loving lately? It can be books, it can be a television show, music, anything, podcasts.
The Witcher.
I haven't seen it
So many people have said this.
I love the computer games, and I have to say I've not read the books. I've started listening to the audiobook now. It's one of the few things where I didn't read the books. I don't even know why. It's exactly what I would usually read. So I just played the games and never really thought about the books. And that one has been quite inspiring in some aspects. What I've been reading recently is Debbie Cassidy. She's an urban fantasy writer. Again, someone I fangirl over a lot, and I'm going to see her next month for the 2nd time. So I've sent her messages about how I'm basically going to kidnap her and take her to Scotland and lock her into my attic and just keep her there. You never heard about this plan. But yeah, her latest series, which isn't actually released yet, but I may have begged her to send me an early copy. That's the advantage of being friends with the authors you admire. Her next upcoming Reaper series is absolutely amazing. Yeah, she's one of those dream authors who you just want to write with. Debbie, hi.
We'll get that message to her. Do you have any, this just came to me right now and I want to ask it really quickly, but have you found, are there any indie author writing events in Scotland? I want to go to one.
There was a signing in Edinburgh last year. No, was it last year? No, 2018. But that was quite a small one. Right. Rare is coming to Edinburgh this summer. Otherwise, not really in Scotland. That's the only ones. There was 20 Books in Edinburgh was here last summer as a writers' conference, but they said they're not going to do that again. So that was probably a one-off. Yeah.
I'm always trying to keep an eye out. I was wondering if there was anything we could do with the Edinburgh Book Festival, but I don't think it's indie enough for us. I don't think our authors really go to it.
I've heard they're quite anti-indie in some aspects. I mean, I've never tried to get into it, but it's, I've heard from other people.
Yeah.
It's a pity.
Soon. You can be the pioneer.
Yes. We should totally do something.
That would be great. So many authors would go to Scotland, can I just say? Americans love Highlander romance.
Yes, and I think that's why my first series is still pretty popular, because there's a guy in a kilt in it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's what attracted a lot of people. So I hope they're going to like my Highlander book too, even though it's not the traditional kilt Highlander I think many people expect.
No, I love what you're doing with Scottish mythology and folklore. I think that's really interesting and really cool and kind of unique as well. So that sounds great.
Well, that was the fun part of building my brand, is like being as Scottish as possible, which is why my pen name is as Scottish as possible. Skye is the Isle of Skye, and then
I love that it's Skye and Isla.
Yes, Isla is my children's pen name. I couldn't come up with a name, and a reader suggested, why not combine the names of some of your adult protagonists? And Isla is the name of one of the female characters in one of my series, and Winter in another series. And so it's basically the image of those two characters having kids and writing those books for their children. That was the original idea, and I kind of loved that and turned that into the pen name, but not many people know the reason for that.
It was, you were naming them after the two islands, Skye and Isla, which also works.
It would have been the logical step. And when I decided on Skye, I had to pick between several islands, and Isla was one of them. So I could have actually been Isla as my adult name, but people voted for Skye.
They're both really pretty names.
Yes, if I ever have a third name, you can bet it's going to be another Scottish island.
Yeah. No, I have a friend who, her and her brother are both named after islands. She's Isla.
Oh. Yeah. There's so many pretty Scottish islands. It's just very tempting.
Yeah. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's so lovely to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Kobo ReWriting Life podcast. If you're enjoying this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe, and be sure to follow us on socials. We are at Kobo Writing Life on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter. This episode was hosted by Rachel Wharton and Joni DePlacido, with production by Terrence Abrahams. Editing is provided by Kelly Robotham, and our theme music was composed by Tearjerker. If you're ready to start your publishing journey, sign up today at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing!